Hi everybody, I've been asked by a few of you to show you how to score with the blade because I've been playing around with different techniques recently and we've had some really good results. And the reason I like scoring with the blade is because it's a straight cut, so there's no width to the line, okay? It's just a line. And that means that unlike working with a scoreboard where you have a groove that you push the card into, that groove has a measurement. And it has to subtract that measurement from the card that you're scoring, which is why when you buy pre-bought card blanks and they're scored for you, they never quite meet when you fold them in half. You have to go in and trim a bit off. So thought we'd show you how to do it by using an aperture. And we're going to try different blades and different settings so you can find what works for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring on a square, and I'm going to resize it to 5.5 inches. And I'm going to ask it to do 2, and I'm going to set it on the mat. One of them I'm going to move down here. We're not going to deal with that one yet. This one we're going to make twice as wide as it is high. So if we go to Object, to Edit and Resize, I'm going to separate the height and the width by clicking that button. And I'm now going to make it 11 inches wide. Okay, so I've now got my card blank. So this part is going to be the front and this part is going to be the back. Now I want to put a circle aperture in the middle of there. So I'm going to press OK and add, get to add, and then add, patterns, basic shapes, scroll down to page 3, and in the bottom right hand corner is your circle. I'm going to make that 3.5 inches and set it on the mat, and I'm going to move that down here. So I want to put that in the middle of there. Well, I actually want to put that in the middle of the front of the card, but there's no way of aligning that. You could align it to the top and the right, but then you'd have to count down and count across. So what we're going to do is use a square as our positioning guide. So we're going to go to Edit, Multiple Select, Part of the Mat, drag over that large rectangle, press OK, and align the circle to the square. So directional arrows, alignment function, align it centrally vertically, centrally horizontally, press OK twice, go to Object, Edit, and group it. So now what I need to do is put that square over here. So to do that, we multiple select everything on the mat, press OK, go to your directional arrow buttons and align to the top and the right. And that will put that square in exactly the right position that we need to A, be able to use the center line of that square as a score line, but also perfect to position that circle where I need it to be in the front of the card. So the first thing we're going to do now, I'm just going to move it down a little bit because I don't always like cutting right at the top of the mat. So I'm just going to move it down a fraction, and then I'm going to get to my Please Select screen. So we keep going till we get to Please Select and Cut. And when you press Cut, it opens up this screen with this spanner here. So I'm going to put my cut speed on 9, because it should always be on 9 as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to drop my cut amount right down to 1. And the reason that I'm not using auto is because it will go along and it will read the thickness of the card. And if I use auto, it will cut it as many times as it'll push the blade too deep through that card. So when you fold it, it will split. So we need it to think that we want it to cut it very gently. So we set the cut amount on 0.1 millimeters, and it's going to want to cut it at least 2 or 3 times, but we're going to stop it with the pause button after it's cut it once. So we're going to score everything, the big rectangle, the square and the circle first, so that we've got that cut line in place. The other thing I'm going to do is take the cut pressure off auto as well and take it down to -9. Now this will depend on A, the cardstock that you're using, B, the age of your blade, okay? And also there's a little bit of change in between the machines because it depends where the belt is set. If that belt is set a fraction of a millimetre lower on your machine than it is on mine, it might need a different setting, but this is kind of a baseline to work from. So I've got cut speed on 9, cut pressure on -9, and cut amount on 0.1 millimetres. So we're going to score it all first. We're going to cut it with that real shallow cut. So I'm going to load in my mat. Like so. I'm going to press OK. And now I'm going to press start, and we'll see what we get with these settings. I tried it with half cut and dropped the pressure down to -7, and it did brilliantly on some machines, but not on others. So we need to find something that works across the board. And you'll hear it, you've got that sh-ing when it's cutting. So it's done the rectangle, it's now going back and doing the square, and it's now going to go and do the circle. And it's a perfect score, I can see it. It should look like a really fine pencil line. Right, it wants to do it again, so I'm going to pause it, okay? This is when it wants to go and do its second cut, because if it's read the card as 0.3 millimetres and the cut amount is 0.1 millimetres, it thinks it has to cut it 3 times to cut right through it. So we pause the machine and then we quit cutting once it's gone round once, and we press OK. And that will cancel that cut, which is exactly what we want it to do. The other thing you must not do is unload the mat, because if you unload it, you're never going to get it back in exactly the right place. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go to Edit, and we're going to tap the screen to release the shapes. Now we're going to go to Object, Edit, and ungroup the circle from the square, and tap the screen to release the shapes. We want to keep the circle, because that's our aperture. And we press OK and we go to our select arrows. We want to keep the big rectangle, but we want to put the square, which is A, our positioning guide, and B, our score line, in the bin. And then we're going to press cut. So please select and cut. We're going to put everything back to auto. So this is going to go back to auto. This is going to go back to auto. So your cut pressure and your cut amount both go back to auto. We press OK and we press start. Cool this, isn't it? It's looking at it now, seeing how many times it needs to cut. And you can hear it's a different noise because it's going deeper. This score lines on Use Scan and Cut for making boxes and card shapes are just amazing, because it literally just cuts the top layer of your card, which is super clever. Right, so I'm going to unload this mat now, because we can. And you'll see, if I hold this up to you here, you'll see there's a perfect score line there. And it's absolutely pinpoint sharp, which you would expect because the blade has done it. The other great thing is, if I fold it in half and show you that, it's absolutely bang on perfect. There's no part that's wider or narrower. It actually meets that side perfectly. And that's exactly what we want when we're making our shaped cards. So that's doing it with the SDX blade. What I'm now going to do is ask it to just do a score line, so just a basic card blank. But I'm going to try it with the vinyl blade on half cut and see if that works, because we might as well try all the blades and see where we get to. So we're just going to do the same thing but without the aperture this time, because I've shown you that bit now. So if we just press, well, we'll go back, let's edit this, let's put the circle in the bin. And then let's add and just bring on a 5.5 inch square, because the left hand side of the square is what's going to give us our score line. So if I make this 5.5 like that and set it on the mat. So I've now got my square there and I've got this here, okay? I'm actually just going to put another square on and you'll understand why in a minute. So I'm going to go to Object, Edit and Duplicate. So I've got 2. And move one over here. So I'm going to nudge that one up and keep this one down at the bottom. So I'm going to multiple select part of the mat, drag over that extra square, which we're going to use for the next time that we test a blade. And then I'm going to align this to the top and to the right. Okay, so I've now got that in place. Now, if I try and cut this now, it will also cut this square out. This is another little tip for you. If you've got lots of things on your mat and some of them you don't want to cut in one go, if you go to your spanner and change your cut area and drag over that shape that you don't want to include in this cut and press OK, it can't see it. So if it can't see it, it can't do anything with it. So we're going to do this bit now, score this, and it will ignore that shape. So you don't have to keep saving everything and then bringing just one part off and deleting everything off. You can just have them down at the bottom. Even if they overlap the ones at the top, as soon as you cover them with that, changing that cut area, it can't see them. So let's score this first of all with our vinyl blade. So let's take our vinyl blade. This is the one, the SGX one with the blue at the top. We're going to drop that into our machine and we're going to press OK twice. Go to please select and cut. The pattern is out of the effective area. The pattern cannot be cut or drawn. OK to continue. It's talking about the second square. So we are OK to continue and it will just ignore it. So now when we go into our settings, I'm going to go down to page 2. I'm going to put half cut on, and I think I'm going to drop my auto down to -2, I think. I think that's probably the best thing to do. So I'm going to press OK and start. We'll see what we get with those settings. Might be that we need to drop the pressure more, might be that we need to up the pressure. Because if that card is 0.3 millimeters thick, it's going to cut on half cut at 0.15 millimeters. So by taking the pressure back to -2, I'm lifting that back pressure off even more. And I would say that that's done a perfect job. So if we press OK now and go back, we can now go to edit and delete that square. And then we're going to ask it to cut fully. So when you're cutting fully, I would go back to your normal blade. Okay, because the vinyl blade is much finer and your regular blade goes deeper. The actual blade, the tip of the blade can go deeper. So if we go to please select and cut now, it still tells me that pattern's out, but it says OK to continue. So that's what we press. We're going to go into here. We're going to drop down and we're going to take half cut off and put the half cut pressure back to auto. You have to manually remove half cut. Then we're going to press OK and we're going to ask it to start. So you've got options now. I might try it with the fabric blade too. That'd be interesting. Let's see what we get. It's exciting, isn't it? And what's really great is when you do, excuse me, boxes and tabs and things like that, because you're not taking any measurement off, you get an absolutely bang-on accurate box. Right, it wants to cut it again, so I'm going to let it do it again. It's thinking about it. It's telling me it needs a second cut, and I'm trusting it. So now I'm going to press unload and see what we've got. Now, sometimes when you do, because you've already cut this once and then you send it round to cut again, you can get some little feathered bits on the edge, especially when you've done one cut with a vinyl blade and then go in and do another one. You'll get a few little stray bits, but just wipe them away. And again, we've got that perfect score line. Now, this has gone a little bit deeper than the one we did where we used our regular blade. So if I was to do this again, I would probably put my half cut setting on -3. It's still fine and it still looks okay, but it's gone a little bit deeper on that card. So drop your pressure back even more and find out what works on your machine. But again, we've got that perfect, it just meets perfectly every single time, which is exactly what we want. So that's with your vinyl blade. Now I'm going to do it with the CM blade. And this blade has been used quite a bit. So again, it will depend on the age of your blade and also the thickness of your card. And it's not just, it's interesting, isn't it? It's not just about the GSM of your card. It's about what the card is used for. So we've just managed to get hold of 12 by 12 pure print, and pure print is our printing card and paper that we sell at Highlight Crafts. And we've managed to get it in 12 by 12. Now, because it's pure print, because it's made for a printer, we want that ink, when we print, to sit on the surface of the card. We don't want it to absorb right in, because then that's what we call drinking the ink. And it uses much more ink, and your ink cartridges run out faster. So when this kind of paper is made, it's instead of having quite long fibres, which like a watercolour card would have, for example, which is quite open because it wants to absorb that water in, we have smaller fibres. And the fibres are all sprayed at big rollers and it's compressed. So those fibres are tiny, so that when the ink is dropped on it, the ink almost stops. It doesn't wick very far, because the further away it goes from that pure pigment, the lighter it becomes. Think about when you put paint on a piece of watercolour card and you brush it out. The further away from that pigment you get, the paler it becomes. So the reason I'm telling you all this is because when you've got a card that's got smaller fibres, it's denser because there's more of them and they're more compact. So you might buy a regular 300 GSM just for regular crafting, not for printing, and the fibres might be more open. So that's something else that you need to think about, okay? So if my settings don't work perfectly for your first time, you just need to play around with them a little bit, okay? So let's do it with the CM blade now. So the reason I brought on this other square is now that I've got a square to play with. So let's go back. Let's align this, but before I do it, I'm going to duplicate it again because I am going to try it with the fabric blade. So let's go Object, Edit and Duplicate. So I've got 2. Let's bring that one up and let's align the big rectangle with the square. So Multiple Select, part of the mat. It already knows that it's greyed out. So it's going to select both of those. We're then going to align it to the top and to the right. And then we're going to cut this with our CM blade. Now, the CM blade is very, very similar to the vinyl blade, just so that you know. And I am going to put it on, what am I going to put the blade on? I'm going to put the blade on 1.5. Let's try 1.5. So bob that in. So it now knows that it hasn't got an auto blade in. It now knows that it's got a standard blade from a CM machine in. And I'm going to press OK until we get to Please Select and Cut. Tells me about that pattern again, just press OK. Go into my settings. I'm going to take my cut pressure down to -2 and see what happens. Again, this is an older CM blade, so we'll have to work it out. But that's why we're doing videos. So let's see what we get with this one. So load it in. Press OK and start. This is a great way, and I love the way that the fact that you can make your own shaped cards that are accurate, because sometimes we don't want them in that white card that they're selling in the shops or that particular cream card. We want to make our own. We want to see, you know, kind of what techniques we get to. Okay, so that scored it. That's quite good. So I'm going to press OK, go back, edit, tap the screen to release the shapes and delete that square. And then I'm going to take out my CM blade and I'm going to take it up to about 7 for this card, because I know that this is thick. It's dense, as we've just spoken about. So I'm going to pop that back into there. I'm going to press OK. And when we get to Please Select and Cut, tells me about the pattern being outside again, which is fine. I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to take my cut pressure up to 1. Okay, because the pressure is your last resort, if you like. So when you're cutting something that's thick, your blade needs to be able to cut it from underneath. So if you haven't got the blade depth high enough, that blade can't get through that thickness of card. So it can't cut it from underneath, which is why it will drag it. So I would increase the blade depth and keep the pressure low, and keep increasing that blade depth until it cuts to where you want it to be. And if it's at 12 and it's still not cutting through, drop the blade back down and increase the pressure, okay? So the pressure is the force that it puts on that blade. So we're going to press OK now, and we're going to press Start and see what we get with those settings. But it looks like it's done a nice score, which is lovely. Okay, so I always check, just by lifting the card up, that it's cut through before I unload my mat. So unload it now, because that's great cut. And then if I fold that, oh, that's perfect. Again, you could drop it down a little bit more because you can't see it through here, so it's not cut through, but it has split that card a little bit deeper. So it's done the same as the vinyl blade did. So drop your pressure down an extra 1 to -3, and you'll get that perfect score. That's fabulous. I'm really happy with that. So I'm just going to go and grab a fabric blade, because I don't think there's one in this machine, although there might be. I haven't checked. Oh, yes, there is. Excellent. Let's see what we get with this, because it's worth trying all of the blades, isn't it? We might as well while we're here. So let's drop the fabric blade in, and let's turn this piece of card round, and let's see what we get with this. So line that up, burnish it down like that. Right, so let's go back. Let's put our cut area back to normal, back to full, just by dragging that down, because we're now going to incorporate that spare square. So edit, multiple select, everything on the mat, and press OK. Directional arrows, and a line to the top and the right. And then we'll see what we get with this. So I think I'm going to put them, let's see, because I've never tried it with this, so this is a bit of an experiment. So we're going to go into our settings. It's still working on the auto blade, so I'm going to put the cut amount to 0.1 millimeters again, and I'm going to drop the auto back to -9 and see what we get with this. And then we can work up if we need to, okay? So let's load this in, because the fabric blade is very fine. The chamfer, the angled bit, is very shallow on the fabric blade, and it's brilliant on fabric. And if you're going to use this to cut your card, please get a separate blade, like you would separate scissors. So I'm going to press OK, and we're going to start. I have no idea what's going to happen with this, so I'm excited too. I never get scared, I get excited, because it's a choice. You're not going to break the machine by trying things, but it's quite exciting when you find something new. Right. That hasn't gone anywhere near deep enough. And I can tell because you almost, I'm going to pause it, you almost can't see the line. So it will either show you no line at all, or it will show you a very, very, very fine line. And I know that if I try and fold that, it'll just crinkle the card. So I'm going to go to please select and cut again, which opens up our spanner. And I'm going to increase the cut pressure to -7. Actually, I'm going to do -8. I'm going to come up one at a time and press OK and press start. And I can't take it out to show you, because then I won't get it back in the right place. But you'll see the difference when you try it on your machine. Again, it will depend on that thickness and density of your card. This looks better. Okay, I'm going to pause it because it's going to want to do it again. So quick cutting and OK. That's a little bit deeper. So I'm actually going to let it now cut the whole thing. So I would take the fabric blade out, because it's not meant to cut through thick card. And I would put the regular blade back in. So now let's have a look. So let's go, please, cut. Go back, edit. Tap the screen to release the shapes, put the square in the bin, keep going till you get to please select and cut. Go back into your toolbox, put everything back onto auto, and then we'll cut it and press start. Very clever, isn't it, how it just automatically reads it. I know in other machines you've got like a drop-down menu for light card, heavy card, etc., but they're all different. And at least this one actually reads the depth of the card. So it's going to do another cut, which it did last time, so I would expect it to do it again. It's better to do a gentle cut than to force that blade through. So if I unload this now, let's see what we've got with our fabric blade. Okay, so I can't see it hasn't cut through, which is good because there's no line there. And when I fold it, yeah, again, that's very good. So that's the same as your CM blade and your vinyl blade. So again, we started on -9, so you can't go any lower than that. So yes, it works with the fabric blade. And even after we've folded it, there's no sign of it here. You can see the crease line, but there's no sign of it cutting through. So that all of the blades, you can get to score, which is really exciting. So I'm really pleased about that. So let me talk about applications for scoring with you, because I've just filmed a class which teaches you how to create these different steppers. So you've got this one, and this one, and all three are in the same class. Now, we're going to put a link in this video. So this isn't a free class, this is a paid for class, and there will be a link here on your screen for you to be able to purchase that class. It's £4.99. Now, that for me is incredible value for money. It's a starting, what's the word? Deal, I guess. It's just for YouTubers. Otherwise, it's £10, okay? So you're going to get these three. I'm going to teach you how to put score lines in, how to position the score lines, how to create the perforation lines and where to put them and when to use them, because we know we don't like perforation lines showing. But there's a process where you need a perforation line, and you learn to do all three of these and the mat layers for them on any of your machines, CM or SDX. So it's a really cool class. And I just thought, you know, we've done loads of free ones. Let's take you a little bit further. And we're trying to build this YouTube channel now so that anybody around the world can access it, which is fabulous. But we do some more expensive classes, which are 3D projects. And we're going to have a whole range of different levels of design. But it's a really cool thing to do because it's what you learn along the way. That's the key. So if you have liked or enjoyed any of our videos on YouTube, I would really, really appreciate it if you could subscribe, because only half of the people that have watched the videos have subscribed at the moment, and you don't get inundated with loads of information. You'll just get a notification when a new class is available, which is what you want to know, isn't it? You don't want to have to keep scrolling through it all. So if you could do me a favour and subscribe, that would be amazing. And then if you fancy treating yourself to an amazing class for a ridiculous price, then link is there, okay? So that's it for today. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Take care, and I'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.